Hi, I'm Diane Lucas,
Hi, I'm Sal Cosenza.
and welcome to Abstract Essay. Abstract Essay is created to empower artists like us.
Like you and me.
Yes, we consider ourselves an artist because we are an artist. We create something that make fun.
Yeah, right? And I
Yes,
suspect that everyone who listens to this podcast and watches is an artist in their own way. And they just
yes,
don't, some of them don't realize it yet, or some of them really do understand that they are artists.
yes. They don't
But
think that they're an artist, but you are an artist. In different way.
yes.
So
Just
before
don't say
we
you're a con artist. We're not con
yes,
artists.
con
That's
art.
the only
We
artist we're not. Okay. Go
con
ahead,
art.
Daniel. Sorry.
Con art. But before we go on, Mr. Sal, we want to promote your Manhattan.
We do?
Yeah, we do. It's on
Thank you.
our it's on
Yep.
our list.
Well, so thank you for that. And yeah, I wrote this book, published it last year. It's based on a painting series, the Manhattan series I did from 2002 to 2019. This book is sort of a it's a historical fiction with fantasy thrown in there. So it's mixed genres, right? Different genres are present, but it took a lot out of me. But actually, today's sort of dissertation, this episode is based on the sketches and drawings behind the paintings behind this book, if that makes any sense.
Makes sense. So
It's
should I
from,
do the drum roll?
oh my goodness, the pressure. Yes,
Okay, and here we go.
almost.
Oh, perfect.
I almost landed. Every time the drum roll goes, I try to land on this on the screen and it fails every time. But anyway, um,
But
yeah.
congratulations, you did.
Thank you. I made it to the other side. So, what the heck are we looking at today? Well,
Manhattan.
yeah, so let me preface by saying that all of the sketches here were put together using Adobe InDesign, which a lot of designers and architecture students and interior designers will know what that is. Do you know Adobe InDesign, Daniel?
Yes, I
Okay,
do
good.
use sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
I
but
know.
it is yes.
It's really convenient. It's great for book layouts, any sort of,
For
you
sketching,
know,
right?
yeah, anything, any images, photos. It's like I love it. I use it. I've been using it for years and years, and I still use it, and I stress it to my students to use. Um,
How about Mr. Sol Canva? Is it the same thing, Canva or Adobe or same?
yeah, a lot of my students use Canva.
Yeah.
I'm softening my stance over the semesters, I've noticed. Originally, I was against it, but use what you got, right?
Yes.
I personally like InDesign, but if a student uses Canva,
Why not?
I don't mind. Yeah, there's also Google, what is it? Google Slides, which I've used for presentations, but I think InDesign gives you the most control and the most it has so much flexibility, right? Like it allows you to um, really create layouts that snap, right? Like they lock into each other. um, I personally, I'm pro InDesign. I know it costs an arm and a leg to have it. The Adobe softwares are not cheap, but
Mm.
I recommend it. Usually, if you're working in an office, if you're a, interior design firm or architecture firm, they should have the Adobe softwares like right on every computer. Um, and I know there's student discounts on them on it too. But anyway, so yeah, these were done in InDesign. Uh, it was for a tour that I wanted to get off the ground. After I finished the last painting in this series, Manhattan the Wonder City, I wanted to do Manhattan the Wonder City tour.
Yes.
But COVID sort of put an end to that, uh, for now anyway. The idea was to tour the paintings and all of these sketches and drawings. And then wherever I was, different venues and galleries across, first it was going to be in Arizona and then in New York and then maybe, you know, maybe other states. But I would have raised money for, originally it was for veterans and then it became for firefighters. But the project just didn't transpire. I came close on a couple occasions, but anyway, um, maybe in the
Life must
future.
go on.
Life has to go on,
Go
right?
on, yes.
Maybe in the future at some point, but at least I was able to compile a lot of these sketches that I had done over the past like 18 years and format them. So, so what I'm going to do today is go through the, the story behind the story, the sketches behind these final paintings. Um, and if you want to check out the final paintings, you can go to my website, salcosenza.com. It's in the art tab, and you'll see every Manhattan painting there. But okay, so these are in order, by the way. These are chronological. So from 2002 to about 2018, 2019, I think I stopped with creating drawings. These are not all of them, so I made like hundreds of sketches for
A
this
lot.
series,
Yeah.
but these are like the best ones, I think. And so let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to 2002. And before I painted the first Manhattan painting, the 30-inch by 40-inch final piece, I did this smaller, I think it was like 16 inches by 20 inches. The dimensions I'm forgetting, but this was a sort of production painting, right? It wasn't as super detailed, but all of the elements were present, and it was obviously done in, a fraction of the time. So I wasn't too worried about, having every detail in there. But the elements are there. You've got the main buildings here in the foreground, the Chrysler Empire. You've got the Twin Towers in the backdrop. You've got bridges here. And the sort of look and feel of what became that painting is present in this one, in this sort of production one. And somewhere along the way, after I did the first painting and finished it, I had this idea of producing like, a series. And so I drew these little quick thumbnail sketches. So at the bottom here on the left is the first Manhattan. Here's the second. Here's the third. Here's the fourth and fifth, right? And so, I think when
Yes.
I drew these, I was on the second one. I was finishing the second painting. And then I had ideas for a third, fourth, and fifth. Not everything was worked out, but this was sort of a blueprint for the whole series. Right? And so this really helped. And I was looking at stuff like color scheme, right? If the first Manhattan is predominantly violet in its color palette, the second one, Manhattan the Rising War, was blue. The third one was tan. The fourth was green or blue, right? So then you could see blue or green, it was to be developed. But um, anyway, so the first Manhattan, I only had this production painting and this sketch and a couple little doodles. But then when I got to the second painting in the series, which is Manhattan the Rising War, the painting version, I went crazy with my sketches. Like, hold me back, Daniel. There were too many sketches, right? Um,
Yes. There's some
you know,
fabulous sketches.
Thank you. And they vary in quality, right? These are on just notebook paper on the left. You can see the lines, but they got the idea out there. But then I started getting into individual sort of character studies and, the characters of each building, right? So here's a Metropolitan Life tower concept, this clock tower at the top of it. These are other Metro Life Towers here. If I go to the next sheet, here's my concept sketch for the Chrysler building. I wanted to
Nice.
get, she has sort of like a makeover by the time from the first painting to the second one. Um, she got a little more surreal and a slightly more sort of gothic in in feel, in look. And then here's a drawing of one of the chrome gargoyle arms of the Chrysler building. And this was an early sketch, and a lot of them have dates, right? So this one was drawn in May 27th of 2004. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Oh my
Time's
goodness.
flying. Why is time?
Nice.
So then what do we have on this one? Here's so in that second painting, there's like, three times the amount of buildings present. So I had, a lot of fun like thinking of all the different characters. So here's a sketch of St. Patrick's Cathedral. You can tell I was interested, and I still am, in Batman, right? Like this one looks very Batman-y, right? Here's the stained glass window that eventually, if you could see my cursor, this window design eventually was placed right here on the final painting. And if I zoom in here, you can see a sketch of this tower called the Ladder Tower, which has ladders spiraling up it. Here's an early sketch of Central Park, which was included on the final painting. Here's a sketch of the Times Square towers um, with billboards, right? So neon signs and all kinds of things. This Times Square one I remember was done using watercolor, which is, I also had a lot of fun experimenting with different materials and medium, right? Media, I should say. So Prismacolors, graphite, right? Just regular pencils, watercolor, Sharpies. Later on, as this series developed and my sketches developed, I started using digital tools like Photoshop. Um, so here's a drawing of Uncle Sam who's present in the final piece. Here's a tank design. Here's a terror ship design and like some earlier iterations here on the right. Here's a drawing showing Ground Zero. So the Twin Towers by this point in the story have been killed, and all that's left are their sort of mangled remains. So I drew that up. This image on the bottom right is one of the Manhattan military ships. Okay,
Military
so
ships. Wow. Like a
yeah, kind
bullet,
of,
like a bullet train.
yeah, right. It as I look at it today, yeah, it really does look that way. So I
That
had
is
fun with
great.
these, as you can see.
So,
So
Mr. Sal,
then,
when you're doing your sketch, what give you motivation?
well, I'm a big fan, as you know, of film, right? And I love um, Star Wars. What every Star Wars movie has thousands of hours of production, design, concept artists creating it, right? So everything you see on screen with Star Wars has been already drawn, you know, uh, concept is everything with those movies. And so I have a lot of making of books, right? Like the art of Star Wars or the art of like whatever other big movies there are, right? Batman, I know I have one. So I'm looking at these sketches all the time. I'm looking to see like what are the artists doing? So that inspires me too.
Certainly. Go ahead,
Yeah, thank
Mister.
you. So that concludes for Manhattan the Rising War. The third painting is Manhattan the Wrath of Terror, right? And so this is the darkest painting in the whole series. I started by creating this drawing here at the top. It's Manhattan Island, but it's been depopulated. And so you just see just a few buildings sort of walking around. And then here's Central Park, sort of the long, it's sort of a surreal version of Manhattan Island anyway. So it looks a little different. But that got me started with, kicking off the production of this painting. I had made this sort of like a teaser image, right? Almost like a poster for the painting. And I think it helped me a great deal. A lot of the concepts and elements that you see in this little poster find themselves in the final painting. From the dunes to the eyes to the orangey, the colors, and even the stone here. Um, and then here, on the left, we just have some more smaller character studies. Let me see if I could. So on the top left, you got this Trinity Church drawing. You've got Rockefeller slab in the middle. And on the bottom, you have various sort of, uh, you know, concepts of the restaurant, the Puglia Ristorante,
Mm.
starting with the one on the right, and then the middle, and then the final design is what you see on the left with the yellow background, and that's the one that makes it to the final painting. So there
Awesome.
was, there's a huge like process behind this. Before I, well, in general, before I started painting, I spent a few months. Again, I had a lot of time back then. I don't know if I could do this today, maybe, but I spent a few months just drawing, just conceptualizing, and
Yes.
then from there, I would start painting. Um, and so here's more, here's the Empire State Building on the left. He's a little gashed. He's got bruises and, sort of cracks and stuff. It's indicative of this painting. This is going to be a really, this is the painting again, the most like apocalyptic one in the whole series. So all of the buildings are, you know, damaged or injured, or so here's Chrysler Building being held captive. Um, and then the third one also had, for the first time, I had little people in it. Um, right. So the Manhattanites. So I try to create characters that, it reflected,
Resemble.
yeah, like reflected the diversity of this world, of this city. New York, as we all know, is extremely diverse in general. So this city, this fictional version of Manhattan, had to also be reflective of that diversity, and also in the fashion, right? So I was sort of playing with different ideas like 1920s, 30s, Art Deco, sort of in this drawing at the left here. I was looking at, the classic, like ancient Greeks and ancient Romans. They wore a lot of sort of drapes, like draping things. So I'm trying to mix things together, like top hats and 1920s with like ancient Greece, to sort
Nice.
of produce like a very unique identity, for the city's like citizens. So that was fun to do. And then, in this third one, I had to design the villains really for the first time, right? So I needed,
The villain.
well, yeah, so this terror group, right? It's like this sci-fi, uh, it's almost like War of the Worlds, right? So they're coming to Manhattan. They're like destroying buildings left and right. So I wanted different types of vehicles. So you have this Cyclops uh, monster, basically, that it's towering, with these blasting arms and this single eye, um, and sort of like battle hardened steel, right? But very sort of frightening looking. You have these creatures that spew lava, but they're like hovercraft. Here's an image showing just one like Manhattan military tank sort of charging against, in the background. three big Cyclops bots. In this drawing particularly, you can see my influence with, the Empire Strikes Back with the AT-ATs. Okay, so that's for the third. Here's the fourth out of the fifth. So the fourth painting is the one where the buildings sort of regain the upper hand, and they charge back and they sort of fight this terror group to reclaim or emancipate their city. So that the fourth one was called Manhattan Emancipation for that reason. So here was sort of my starting off sketch. You can see I drew this in 2010. So, oh my goodness, this one's 15 years old. Oh my gosh,
15
but
years old.
how,
Wow.
how time flies.
Amazing. So what
So
can
you
you
got,
say after 15 years?
time flies. Uh, you don't think about it, right, until it happens.
True.
You don't think about it until you see something you drew and it says 2010 on it, and and it's 2025. But I could see my techniques were evolving though. I think they got more and more complex, these drawings. And Manhattan Emancipation also had the presence of like digital uh, photoshopped renderings almost. Like this was an early sort of Photoshop study. Um, just to sort of, again, very pixelated, very rough around the edges, but I did it in 2008. But trying to get a feel for the sky and for the landscape and the buildings in the foreground, right? This is sort of a production painting once again. But I have, classic old school sketches as well, a ton of them. These are showing Empire State and Chrysler as prisoners inside this sort of hardened lava, like candle form. So I was experimenting with different ideas there. Um, this is also the painting where Lady Liberty's torch turns like a bright white, like Gandalf, almost like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. And so here's some drawings of Lady Liberty flying, carrying that torch. Here's some studies on the left of her hands, right? So I was playing with different gestures that she can use. The hand had to sort of say, come on, let's go, because she's leading the charge. And then here's a sketch showing the lead, the terror commander, who's like the main villain, and he's also the main villain in the book, by the way. But he's sort of this, skeletal sort of representation of like hell, in in a humanoid form. And he is a towering creature as well, right? So he's taller than a normal human. In the background, you have these sort of lava caves, but they're very anthropomorphic. They sort of look like creatures. And here's like a building being swallowed up in the lava. And over here, you have some remnants of Central Park. So, this was another sort of dark painting. So the drawings themselves had to naturally be dark as well. But by the time we get to the fifth and final one, this is Manhattan, the Wonder City. This is the celebratory painting in the series. So a lot of the drawings follow suit, right? So here's, there's this huge parade sequence in the painting with hundreds of little people painted. That was a painstaking process for me. It took like over a year to realize it. But I needed sketches, right? I needed sketches like this in order to really realize what the hell I was doing, how it was eventually going to look. So you have like searchlights here, you have different floats, different balloons. You've got Guggenheim and the restaurant in the background here. You've got little ticker tape parade, so things are flying in the air. This drawing was made mainly using Prismacolor marker. Um, here's some more from that last painting. Here's Lady Liberty. Um, I always thought this was a nice sketch. Kind of captures her personality. By the time we get to the fifth one, she's finally sort of at peace. She's happy that her city has sort of regained life. And then just to her left, here's a couple people hanging on her shoulder, and she's sort of looking at them. So it's a mix of different sketches. This one on the left, it doesn't look like much, but it's a study of just the sky, like the backdrop of the sky. And I remember creating this first using colored pencil and different markers, but then I scanned the drawing, I took it into Photoshop, and I added some more like clouds and filters to give it this sort of different feel. So this is actually a mixed media painting slash drawing. done with digital tools and traditional. Here's drawings of two of the sacred buildings in the story. So you have Masjid Mosque, um, with its giant dome and the crescent moon, um, on the left, and on the right you have Central Synagogue, with its two towers. Here's a sketch for Apollo Theater, which eventually all of these buildings end up in the final painting. But again, these sketches helped me immensely in sort of realizing them. Right. Here's another sort of early sketch when I was working on that last painting. So early in the production of that last painting, I should say. So this one was drawn in 2012. This is a Prismacolor marker, and I guess it's just Sharpie. Oh, and actually, I don't know if you can see the screen right now. I'm holding up one of my favorite pens, and I did use this pen for this this drawing, I remember. One of my favorite pens is the Uniball Vision Elite,
Yes.
in case you were wondering.
Please sponsor our
Yeah,
podcast.
I know. We're,
Whoosh.
yeah, please, Uniball, we're welcome.
Uniball.
We're open to sponsorships.
Yes.
Here at the
Please.
left is another Sharpie. And Sharpie, if you want to join in on the fun, this was
For
done
sure.
using Sharpie and Vision Elite. It's showing the little humans of Manhattan sort of celebrating on top of one of the big Cyclops bots, the heads, right? So the terror group has been defeated. And I think the last painting I had the most fun with the sketches. So here's just a close up of St. Patrick's Cathedral, one of its rose windows, and I tried to capture the stained glass here. I forgot the name of this type of pen, but I remember I liked its effect. And this was a mix of, I think, highlighter with that specific marker I was using, and Sharpie, and again this pen was in there. And here's a few more sketches on the right. Um, I played again with like different people and different outfits, right? So here's just some more different characters populating the painting. Like most of these uniforms and suits and dresses that you see here made it into the final painting, because I had to paint like hundreds of little people, right? So they couldn't all be wearing the same thing. So I had to come up with a lot of different wardrobes. Here's like a hospital, like this guy could be a doctor maybe, right? You have like the Red Cross symbol on his arm. Here's like three cheerleaders. this woman's got like a Statue of Liberty style crown on her head, and even like a tattoo. Um, here's a soldier in uniform from the Manhattan military putting a helmet onto a little, like a Yankee fan, but there are no Yankees. There's no New York Yankees in this story, but maybe there is. I don't know, but
Maybe there is.
and then here's the uniform for the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, which is the group that rebuilds the city with shovels and um, cranes and whatnot. So here's a realization on the back in the back of them recreating Central Park, so replanting trees. Um, here's some vehicles, right? So I've got a sort of futuristic fire truck here on the bottom right with with a firefighter with the yellow uniform. This thing like hovers off the ground. On the left, this was another mixed media piece. I used Photoshop for the background. In the foreground, I used Prismacolor and this pen again. But these are, different sort of construction vehicles. Um, and then here's another construction vehicle. Um, I did this one in June of 2012. And then, okay, so I'll close with this one. So this is almost like a still time lapse, if you will. So as I was painting the last piece, the Wonder City, I, I, I documented the phases, right? So if you look at the bottom left image,
Yes.
that's one of the earliest photos I took of the painting, and you can kind of see the process. Daniel, like you've asked me in the past, what is my process when I paint, and I would respond, it's like from back to front, background to foreground. So here, at this stage of the painting, you can see I've got pretty much the entire sky done. I've got some background buildings painted in, and then I'm just sort of working my way to the foreground. So as I go from image 1 on the bottom left to image 2 in the middle to image 3, you can see the buildings like popping up, right? Then I go to 4, 5, you can see the start of like Lady Liberty on the left side without arms. But then by
Yes.
the time we get to image 6, I got Lady Liberty. I had to change Lady Liberty's face. I remember it because 6, it wasn't, it wasn't just working. So, so actually, if you look from 6 to 7, Lady Liberty's face changes completely. Um, and then here's 8, 9, and then here's 10, which is how it finally ends up, right? But it's kind of interesting to see like how the elements are added, right? And how that layering technique works. With this painting, I also logged the amount of hours I put into it. So it took 313 hours to paint it.
Wow.
It took 7.5 years to
To
complete it
complete.
because I was living in New York and then this painting was in Arizona, so I had limited time to work on it. But every time I would be out here in Arizona, I would work on it. But it took over 7 years to finish. I had different titles picked out. I had six titles. One of them was Manhattan Tomorrowland, but I settled on Manhattan the Wonder City. And then this was kind of like a joke. The number of big apples that are in this painting are 1. There's a building that has a big apple sitting on top of it. Um, but that collage that you just saw of all the different paintings, the sequence was those photos were taken from January 2013 to June of 2020. Um,
Wow.
so that's pretty much
Amazing.
that's uh, that's the concept behind that. Um,
Mr. Sal
What do you say?
Cosenza, thank you so much for sharing your sketches to the world. Truly amazing and inspiring. So, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to start sketching their paintings?
Yeah, I would say be open to not only sketching, but be comfortable writing. Like whatever your background is and your interests are, and you want to ultimately create a painting, you can write about it first, right? You can create poetry about it. You can certainly sketch it, right? Like do whatever it takes to, again, the goal is to get it from here onto a surface, right? So whatever means you need to do that, uh, whatever means are required, go ahead and explore that, right? This is something I'm always preaching to my students. Some of them might get annoyed by it, but but most of them are really open to it. But I think we just need to use all of our strengths and abilities and gifts to realize our final vision of whatever we're producing. So just go for it.
Yes, go for it and stop procrastinating, people. If you
Yes.
have the passion to paint, please do share to the world. And Mr.
Uniball
Sal,
Vision Elite or no.
yes,
Yes.
Uniball, please sponsor us. We're accepting the sponsor Abstract Essay.
Yes.
So I just want to plug in my Book 101 review, people. My feature author of the month, Miss Angela Henry. We're live tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. PST. Please do watch us or listen to us because Miss Angela Henry talking about one of her favorite books. Please do listen Book 101 wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Sal, would you like to plug in something?
And I just wish you a great week, Daniel, and everyone out there. I hope you start creating something. Start realizing your dreams on a sheet of paper or a canvas. So I wish you inspiration this week.
Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Sal, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks again, Daniel, for having me. As always, have a great week, everyone.
Modicon people, see you soon.